So I think we were going to start our questions, our line of questioning with how does parental alienation impact a child's identity? Before I totally land that question on your lap, Andrew, I'll just sort of preface by saying that a child's identity is formed, of course, when they're throughout their life, but when they're very, very young, they're attached to their parents, primarily their mother, and there is no separation of identity because they're bonded with mom or dad. So that's just something to keep in mind, and it might be neat as we do this podcast to view it with this overarching lens of the past and the future, and just the whole timeline that faces a child going through alienation, rather than one moment, just the whole timeline, because it's really an early trauma, and that can turn into a generational trauma.
Absolutely. So the question is definitely a very big one. How does alienation impact a child's identity? And I want to start off by saying that in a normal, healthy relationship between two people, you have two different identities interacting with each other. And even in an intimate relationship, your partner wouldn't be an extension of yourself. They are their own person. And likewise, in a healthy relationship with a child, the child will be developing their own identity, and they are not in any way an extension of the parent, at least beyond that initial attachment period that Barbara was talking about.
Exactly.
So what ends up happening with a child during the alienation process is the opposite. They are forced to adopt an identity that is molded by the alienating parent. What I mean by this is that they have a explicit set of rules that they have to follow, as an explicit set of behaviors they have to follow. And the moment they stop following those behaviors, it leads to punishment. It leads to a lot of yelling, a lot of anger. It can lead to forms of abuse. It really does depend on that dynamic behind the relationship. So for starters, it really does come down to what identity is being molded for them. And this can influence their behavior on all fronts, whether it influences their reactions and how they interact with the erased parent. It influences their relationships. It influences how they do in school. And so I've been speaking very broadly just because there's so many different ways that this could pan out. Now, to kind of zoom in a little bit more and kind of show you what I'm talking about, let's just say, for the example, the alienating parent is someone who has a strong sense of value in their vanity. Maybe there's somebody who wants to be seen as the best business person, the best parent, the best coach, the best anything. What ends up happening is that vanity is projected on the child. Now the child is being an extension of that parent. If the child is not the best, then that child impacts the vanity of the alienating parent. So say, for example, that child is an athlete. They need to be the best athlete. Otherwise, they're going to get a lot of pressure, a lot of projected emotion from that vain alienating parent. Say they're a student. They have to be a top tier student. Otherwise, 1 A-, it's not good enough. They're going to get in a lot of trouble. They have to push forward and be the best of the best. And this will translate across everything they do. It kind of creates this sense of performance anxiety. They have to be an overachiever. They have to be as good as they can, or beyond as good as they can, because the bar keeps raising. They could be a student that gets 100%, and they're going to be told, yeah, but it could have been better. And it will crush their confidence because their confidence is rooted in being the best. So that's just one example through vanity. Maybe your alienating parent is somebody who's invasive. Maybe they want to dive in and just read all their personal stuff, read their texts, read their emails, read everything that they're doing. Maybe they don't allow them to have personal time or personal space, and you end up having one of two reactions. Either your child is going to be molded into somebody who allows themselves to never have boundaries, and so they just allow someone to pretty much invade their life and invade their privacy, and likewise subsequently have no sense of privacy, or they will adopt that behavior of being invasive to other people.
So let's just maybe just slow it down a bit here, because what you're describing to me almost sounds like a control over a child, like the reading of the diary, or it all, to me everything you just said sounds like a lot of coercive control. Was
It
it?
absolutely is a form of control. And because the identity of the child has to be in line with the the goals and ambitions of the alienating parent. If the alienating parent can't control their identity, then what's to say that the child doesn't start talking to the erased parent? What's to say that the child doesn't, in a sense, fuse with the alienating parent? In order to mitigate the tension, they have to control everything. And instead of recognizing that the child is their own person, the child is going to grow up into their own personality and their own likes and dislikes. They're only going to allow very superficial disagreements, but fundamentally, they want all those values that they carry within themselves. They want that projected onto the child so that the child will, in a sense, bolster the alienating parent in anything they do.